From San Diego, California, this is the Frug Life Podcast, the show that teaches you how to save, invest, and earn money. Here's the host, Mr. Frugal himself, Ricky Hirsch.
Welcome to the Frug Life. I was listening to a song the other day, Simple Gifts, a Shaker hymn. It reads, "'Tis the gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free." And I started to think, what does it mean to be simple? I think in a modern context, we might think that being simple is like being basic, which certainly has a connotation, right? Liking kind of vanilla or boring things. And I think that's definitely not the context meant in the song. I think living simply is about living humbly, that we don't give ourselves to excess or indulgence or overindulgence, both of which can be vices. Here's another story to consider. There's two philosophers, they're Greek, so I'm not going to say their names. But there was the first philosopher who was eating bread and lentils for supper, and he was seen by another philosopher who lived comfortably by flattering the king. And this other philosopher said to the first, "If you would learn to be subservient to the king, you would not have to live on lentils." To which the first philosopher replied, "Learn to live on lentils, and you will not have to be subservient to the king." I think this is an interesting quote, and one that we can learn from. On one hand, by being really frugal and living on lentils, you can do whatever you want. But on the other, if you do want to eat nicer food and be less frugal, you can do that as well. You're just a little more restricted in a way. And perhaps you could view servitude or subservitude to the king as kind of like working a job, perhaps, in this context. I don't think either one of those philosophers is more right than the other. It's all just a matter of your preference. What do you want to do personally? But with great frugality comes great freedom, I think. Here's another interesting quote from Henry David Thoreau. "The price of anything is the amount of life you exchange for it." Oftentimes we think of prices in the terms of money, how much money a particular item costs. But that's not the only way to look at things. Money, in turn, takes time for us to earn it. And so we can look at purchases not in money terms, but in our terms, how much time we need to earn the money to purchase that item. So naturally, though, the more things cost in dollar terms, the more time it takes to earn it. And likewise, the more time we spend earning the money to get the things we want, the less time we have to enjoy it for ourselves. So it all builds into the same central concept of today's episode. If we learn to live on less, learn to enjoy living on less, you can have more time. You can have more freedom in a way. So the secret to wealth and happiness isn't how to make more money. The secret to wealth is how to be happy with less. A coworker of mine recently left to become a farmer, and I think a lot of the reflections I've had here have been reflections on that. All right, so back to another Henry David Thoreau quote. This is a reference from simplicitycollective.com, which I will link. During his experiment, Thoreau discovered that living a life of voluntary simplicity, he could meet all of the expenses of living by working about 6 weeks a year. At the same time, though, I can't help but to think things are different today than in Thoreau's time. We need health insurance now. We need dental care. We need all sorts of things that cost money. I think I've said this before, but sometimes it seems the world is out there to take all of your money. Money seems to go a lot easier than it comes. I think this is especially true if you look at all my book royalties, which amount to less than $100, but took countless hours to create. The world at times seems to take, not give. And of course, I can spend more than $100 in books very easily, in just a matter of seconds, really. All right, let's take a quick break, and we will be right back. Welcome back. So I think some people might accuse me of having a bit of a scarcity mindset. That's what prosperity mindset people will call that kind of thinking I was just describing, that everyone is out to get your money and that you need to think yourself into being wealthy. And of course, you probably know some of my thoughts on that. Maybe I'll share some links in the show notes to my thoughts on the book, Think and Grow Rich, or You Were Born Rich. I still stand by what I've said, that it's easier to spend less money than it is to just earn more money. Otherwise, your solution to acquiring more freedom would be to make more money, which could be a viable solution. In some ways, frugality as freedom has a few steps in it. And my thinking is that frugality helps you acquire more money, and in turn, that money can help you acquire more freedom. Or really, I guess I could say that frugality helps you need less money to achieve the same level of freedom. In either case, though, I do think that money can help you acquire freedom, right? Because you need to eat. You have expenses to pay. You'll always have some expenses to pay. Even if you manage to farm all your own food, right? There's still things that you would need to buy. And so you always do need some money. And with money, you can do a great number of things. Maybe I don't even need to tell you all the things that you can buy with money. But food, shelter, water, your basic needs. Some people will also say things like money can't buy happiness and money can't buy love. And perhaps they are right, but at the same time, try finding love without food or water or your basic needs being met. And I think you would struggle with that. I think you need to have these lower needs met. There's, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And of course, it's not, proven 100%, but I think there is merit to it, that as we are looking for our most immediate needs, if those most immediate needs aren't being met, we can't even begin to start fulfilling higher needs, right? If you're looking for food, you can't think about self-actualization. You're thinking about food and hunger. So perhaps in another sense of the word, right? What does freedom mean? Perhaps you could view freedom as the ability to fulfill those higher needs, right? The ability to realize your own self-actualization. And without those basic needs met, I think that is very difficult to do. And how can you meet those basic needs? Well, twofold, by having the money to do it, but also by needing less. I know I mentioned happiness too, and I think realizing your true potential is a part of really achieving happiness. Maybe in the future I will talk about hedonism, right, and achieving net pleasure, and perhaps how that's a more superficial version of happiness. All right, well, thank you for listening to today's episode of the podcast. I hope you have enjoyed. I hope I've left you some food for thought. Maybe you can think about how frugal you want to be and consider for yourself if being more frugal will help you achieve greater freedom. Because ultimately, what is the purpose of frugality, right? Why be frugal in the first place? I might argue it's so that you can be happy with less, so you can achieve greater happiness, and so you can achieve greater freedom. And at least that's what frugality means to me. So thanks again for listening. Have a great week. And as always, stay frugal.